Welcome to the I Am Unbreakable podcast, where the struggle is part of the story. Real. Unconventional. And here's your host, Adrianne.
Welcome to the I Am Unbreakable podcast. Today we are joined by Dave McLennan. He is the founder of Boots on the Ground. I cannot tell you how incredibly impressed I am with what he and his lovely wife, Linda, as well as Lynn, are doing. Dave is going to explain the amazing work they are doing for all our frontline workers. Dave, welcome.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. I appreciate the offer.
Thank you so much. What you guys are doing, I'd like you to explain to our listeners. It goes above and beyond. So please maybe explain a little bit about what you did prior to this and how you got into this.
Sure. I was a police officer for 30 years, from 1986 till 2016, and I retired after 30 years. And I was looking for something to do in my retirement, and it was a lot of good luck and a lot of things falling into place that became Boots on the Ground. I had an interest in peer support. I believed in the value of peer support. And really, I was looking for organizations that I could do that with, and didn't really come up with anything. And I was very lucky. It's funny how things happen. My wife heard an ad on the radio for an organization called First Responders First. So I called them, and it ended up being the Public Health and Safety Association.
Wow.
And instead of turning me away, the person on the phone said, well, I told them I was looking for a volunteer opportunity. They said, well, we don't really have any, but let me talk to people around here and I'll get back to you. I thought, I'm not going to hear anything. Sure enough, the next day they called me back and said, our vice president of operations would like to talk to you about starting a volunteer program. I said, great. So I went down and met a great gentleman by the name of Glenn Cullen. He's now the CEO of Public Health and Safety Association, and another lady there, Kim Slade. And they helped us form a steering committee and to do a peer support program with them. Unfortunately, the funding didn't come through for their end on the grant. So it came to the point where then I started the nonprofit and started the organization Boots on the Ground. But we continue to get support from the Public Health and Safety Association to this day.
Awesome.
And that's really how it started. I got a group of 23 like-minded police officers together. And with their guidance, we started a steering committee, and we developed this program that became Boots on the Ground. It took us 2 years to develop it before we launched it. And we talked to psychologists and traumatologists and social workers. But the most important thing we did was we talked to first responders who had PTSD and asked them what would have helped you early on in your journey. What could we do to help other first responders early in their journey?
And that was 2 years prior to you launching.
Yeah, that was 2 years prior to us launching.
You did all the R&D, and this was all, I guess you did this on a volunteer basis, and your 23, like-minded police officers, they also did this all for the support and love of, I guess, helping others.
Yep, love of helping others, and we want to help first responders. Me personally, I had a great 30 years, and I was treated great by the first responder community, and I want to give back to that community that treated me so well in my career. So absolutely.
That's so honorable, Dave. Unbelievable. And so you start this organization, and does it take off right away? Do you realize, I know, and because with my company as well, we have all former police officers and sergeants, detectives, whatever the case may be. And it's just a different life. And for sure, you hear the stories, and for sure, they need a lot more support than maybe perhaps somebody that works in an office, just based on, what they do for a living, sort of running into danger versus running out. So did you find that immediately there was a need for your support with Boots on the Ground?
We did, and we didn't know what to expect. I can tell you for sure. We didn't know whether we were going to get a call a month or whatever. And I can tell you, I took the first shift. It was a Monday morning, and we got our first call 10 the first day.
Wow.
And we were getting, it started off slow. I would say we were getting 20 calls a month in our first year, or roughly say 20 calls a month. Now,
and that's just to backtrack, that's 2018, if my math is correct, right?
Yeah, sorry, it was November 26, 2018. We launched on a Monday morning, and and now we're doing 70, 80 calls a month.
Wow.
So,
And
uh,
so just so our viewers know, is this 24/7?
yeah, so we have a 1-800 number for peer support for all first responders across the province. That's police, fire, EMS, corrections, and nurses. That's frontline staff and civilian staff, and retired and serving staff. And it's a 24-hour peer support helpline that's answered live by our trained volunteers. So we have 2 to 3 volunteers on any given time. You call us, you're not leaving a message at a call center. It goes right to our volunteers'
I
phone,
love that.
and
I
we're
love
talking to
that.
you right away.
Because when people decide, when they finally decide, usually you're their last call quite often. And not to say that there is not other help out there. And, obviously through different associations, they've got amazing help. But I feel like a lot of these first responders hold this stuff really close to their chest, which is obviously part of the disease, as well as part of, maybe the culture. And I know what you're trying to do is bring that awareness that you don't need to do this alone. And you set them up with the proper resources. But the very important thing of what you're saying, that you don't have this answering machine. Hi there, we'll get back to you at 9 a.m. because it could be 2 a.m. It could be, 9:30 p.m. You just don't know when the call is going to come, but you guys are there.
100%. Yeah. And you're right. You're exactly right. It's either it's gotten to the last point where they're making a call. It takes a lot for people to reach out for help. It takes a lot for first responders to reach out for help. We're used to being the helpers, not asking for the help.
Of
And there is
course.
still, unfortunately, some stigma out there that prevents people from calling in. So when people finally make that step to make the call, we want to be available for them. We want to make sure they can talk to someone right away.
Do
And
you
it's very
know?
important.
Yeah. And do you know? I mean, you must know, but I'm in such admiration of what you're doing. Do you know how important this is, right? Like you probably, I mean, do you know how many lives you've changed? Do you have any kind of numbers year to year? Because I can just only imagine the people calling would feel so incredibly comfortable because you have been there yourself. Not, as you said, you had a great, 30 years, and luckily you didn't suffer from anything like this, but or any kind of mental health issues or challenges. But do you have any numbers? Like, what do you think? That you can share with us that
Yeah.
lives you're affecting?
Yeah, well, I can tell you we're at, since our launch, we're at 1,990 calls as of today. So
Wow.
we've answered almost 2,000 calls in our first 4.5 years. So, and it's getting busier. So, yeah, we do have the numbers of how many calls. And later on, I'll get into our other programming, like our service dog, our therapy dog program that we have
Oh,
that we've helped people as well. But as far as our peer support helpline, we're just about at 2,000 calls. So word's getting out there. People are recognizing they can call, and our line is anonymous. So when you call our line, you don't have to give your name. You don't have to give where you work. You don't have to give where you live. So it's not going to get
and
back.
that is so important because the second you call anywhere, they're always obviously, for rightfully so, but they want your first name, your last name, your OHIP card, your phone number, and
Yeah,
all of that information. You give people a platform or a resource that they can actually call and just be themselves. And how important is that? I just, it's immeasurable in my opinion.
it's very important. The anonymity we're finding is very important for people to open up and be relaxed. The ability to connect with a fellow first responder is huge. Peer support works. It's talking to someone who gets it, someone who's been there before. And a lot of first responders, they don't want to go home and tell a bad story to their spouse, their partner, or their family members for fear of upsetting them. You don't have to worry about that when you're calling us because you're talking to first responders who've been in the same situation. So you can feel comfortable just letting loose and talking, getting things off your chest, and not worrying about any judgment or you're going to get an empathetic ear and someone who understands, who can help you.
That's awesome. And I know you've got some amazing things that are kind of coming through for you in 2023. I know you're working on a new app. Can you share a little bit about that to us for our
Absolutely.
viewers?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry. And I don't mean to cut you off. There's a teeny bit of a delay if I cut you off.
Oh, that's okay. I'm used to it. No worries.
Yeah, we've been working on an app with McMaster University, a great team out there at McMaster University, and there's other stakeholders like CIPSERT, and all the first responder communities are involved. And we've been developing, McMaster's been developing this app, a phone app for public safety personnel. And it's a wellness app that's going to have tips and videos and things to do when you've had a bad call and things to do. But it's also going to be the opportunity to chat or text with a peer supporter. And it's also going to have a connection right to boots on the ground if you just want to talk to someone from boots on the ground. So it's been in the development stages. We're just entering the testing stage now, and we're going to be excited. It's going to be a free app, and it's going to be Canada-wide for all public safety personnel in Canada.
I think that's going to be a game changer. I think that with the same business as investigation, a lot of times, they're sitting in their vehicle alone. And that's, sort of when the mind starts to work. And if they have, 5 minutes, 30 minutes to be able to text somebody versus maybe to make that phone call, I think that is so brilliant. Honestly, I think it's going to be a game changer. And once you have it up and running, I'm going to have you back on again to talk about it. Something, again, very near and dear to my heart, you talk about using animals with any kind of, I guess, mental health struggles. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Absolutely. We have two programs. So we have a therapy dog program where we have several therapy dogs across the province, and any first responder organization can call up and say, hey, we'd like a visit from a therapy dog. And we'll send a trained peer supporter who's a therapy dog handler out to your facility with a dog. And
So
it's
just for a visit, that program is just for a visit. That's not an actual, okay.
Yeah, that's just for a visit.
That's great.
And after critical incidents, if your shift has had a bad shift, if you've had a bad call, we could send the dog on to parade. We could
Love
send
it.
you. Our dogs have been at tragic events like funerals and things like that to be there for the people who are attending funerals. You name it, the dogs can go to these events or to these facilities. And it's amazing what a dog can do. Just petting a dog can take your mind off of things for a few minutes, help you relax.
100%. And that's why, as I said, when we got introduced, I was shocked that I had not heard about Boots on the Ground. And I can't say enough, like how important the work is that you're doing to support our frontline workers. So that's, oh, I just love the dog part of it. Now, you also have another interesting thing regarding dog therapy. So do tell.
We do. Yeah, we have a PTSD service dog program. And right now we have 6 PTSD service dogs. One's just been qualified, 5 others are in different stages of their training. And we do our PTSD service dog differently, though. We don't just hand someone a trained dog and say,
You were saying that.
Yeah.
I love that, because then they get to bond and whatnot. So explain just a little bit about the process. Like I said, I want to have Linda and Lynn on as well, talking about that. Maybe they can bring some of our furry friends into studio, but can you explain sort of what the difference is? Because I loved your technique.
Yeah, so we provide first responders with PTSD. We provide them an 8-week-old puppy, and they get the puppy from 8 weeks old. They can start bonding with it. They have to walk the dog, feed the dog, look after the dog. They have to go to weekly training in person. They have to go to weekly training online. So it gets people who maybe have been isolating or not getting out of the house. It gets them out. It gets them.
Gives them purpose.
It gives purpose, exactly. We're getting great results from the program. We're looking at adding 3 more dogs in the fall, and continuing to hopefully add 3 dogs a year. Linda and Lynn run the program for us. They use great trainers, and it's amazing what you can train the dogs to do. So people with PTSD have different triggers, and the dogs can be trained what those triggers are, and then they can help their handler when they're being triggered by certain events that may be bothering them.
That is so, oh, what amazing work, and so important what you're doing. Let me ask you this. You had said, I don't know if you can share or not, but you are adding another component to Boots on the Ground. Do you mind to share who else you're going to open up your services, or your services and your support to?
Absolutely, yeah. We're opening up to the Canadian military this year. We're hoping it's going to be in the spring, and we're really looking forward to that. Our Canadian military need all the support they can get. They're there for us, obviously, when we need them, and we want to support them. And we've had a number of calls from the Canadian military, even though we don't advertise our services yet for the military members, and we don't turn anybody away. And we realize that there's enough of a connection there between first responders like police, fire, EMS, and what military goes through, and the trauma you experience is similar. And there's enough of a connection there that we believe we can help our Canadian military out. So we're going to be offering our services to them hopefully by the spring. We're in the process of training our volunteers and recruiting some military members to be volunteers. And we're hoping to have that part of our programming up and running in the spring.
That is rockstar. Honestly, the work you're doing, I mean, has this always been your passion? I mean, if you really look at policing, it really is about assisting others. People never call you because they're happy. They typically don't call the police when they're happy. So do you feel that the way that you kind of came into this, was this intentional? Like you said, you kind of looked for a volunteer position, but look where you are now and how many lives you're affecting in such a positive way. So do you feel like this was always sort of, the next step for you?
Yeah, you know what? I don't think I realized it, but yeah, as I look back on it, yeah, I think it was the next step. My 30-year career was in helping people and helping the public, and continuing to help people in my retirement. I think it was a natural step. I love to help people if I can, and I think it was a natural step. There was a lot of luck, a lot of things had to fall into place, and there's so many people that have been supportive of me and boots on the ground right from the beginning. I can't even list them all, but we've had such great support from the first responder community, our volunteers, our financial supporters, you name it. Anybody I've had in contact with has blown me away how supportive people have been of me and this organization. It wouldn't have happened without everybody supporting us the way they have.
That is so great. And, I know for a fact that you've got some events that we're going to get involved in as well. So in the description, whoever wants to get involved and wants to help through events, donations, etc., I'll have all of that information for them. But if somebody actually wants to contact you directly or boots on the ground if they need help, could you just give them the contact information?
Absolutely. If they want help and they want to call, our 1-800 number is 833-677-2668 or 833-677-BOOT. And check our website out at www.bootsontheground.ca, and everything is in there, the phone number. We have a lot of vetted resources and referrals that we're able to give people when they call us, but those are available on our website as well. If you don't want to call in and you're looking for a clinician to help you, or you're looking for a group meeting or anything like that, that's all on our website, and it's free to anybody to use if you would like to use those resources.
That's amazing. I have one last question before we thank you. So what would you say? Would you say that there's been a huge incline with people that are struggling at this point? And is it typically with PTSD once they reach out to you? And again, it's
Yeah.
all confidential. I'm just asking you to talk generally.
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly, yeah, we saw an uptick with COVID in our calls. People were isolated during COVID. We had a lot of unknown for first responders in the beginning. Like, they didn't know whether to go home to their families or not, whether it was safe to go home. There was a lot of stress and a lot of unknown. And that's really just continued on since COVID started. And then you've got the changes in the environment as far as there's a lot more crime out there. There's a lot more trauma. There's a lot more gun violence. First responders are being videotaped everything they do, and it's getting analyzed second by second and frame by frame after, when they have to make split-second decisions. So there's a lot more scrutiny. There's a lot more pressure on first responders than ever before. Combine that with COVID and everything else. So absolutely, there is an increased demand for services for first responders, especially with mental health. And we do get calls from first responders who are diagnosed with PTSD. We get calls from first responders who are early on in their mental health journeys and having difficulty. And we deal with all sorts of things, from PTSD to substance abuse to problems at work, problems at home. People can call for any reason. If you're having difficulties and you're having challenges and you want someone to talk to, we're not clinicians. We're peer supporters, and then we can refer you to clinicians after. But we're an empathetic ear. We're here to give you hope, let you know that people care, and let you know that there are things that can be done when you're having your most difficult times. So don't give up. There is hope, and there's people out there who can help you, and we're there to help you in these situations.
And that they're not always going to feel like that. What a beautiful journey and message. And thank you so much. I cannot thank you enough for what you're doing, and as well as for your mission. And I can't wait to see what 2023 and everything else brings for you. Thank you so much, Dave.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and spread the word. So thank you for your time.
You've been listening to the I Am Unbreakable podcast. Real, authentic, real life stories of women who've become unbreakable. We hope you've enjoyed the show. If you did, make sure to like, rate, and review. And we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, find us on Instagram at I.am Unbreakable.